What is up, guys? For this video, hopefully we'll be installing the 3.9 liter back in the Dakota. The Dakota's actually outside because I pressure washed some stuff and cleaned it up a little bit. I worked on a few things on the cab that I'll show you guys later on, but today's objective is to get some new head bolts in the 3.9 liter. So what I've got here is a set of ARP head bolts, and this kit right here is for a 5.2 liter or 5.9 liter V8, specifically a 5.2 liter. Even though it's not for, the 3.9 liter, they're the same bolts because those engines are essentially the same. That's it. I'll just have a few bolts left over. That's pretty much all that it is. So I'm going to be doing this the one bolt at a time method, which means that I will be removing one bolt from the head and then installing the ARP and torquing it to the factory spec, going around the entire head doing all 8 of them, and then once all of them are in and torqued to the factory spec, I'll be torquing them to the ARP spec, the normal, the factory normal way. So this is risky, but leaving the stock head bolts in is risky. Removing the heads and cleaning everything up and putting new head gaskets in is still risky. My theory is that since these head gaskets have been in here for like 20 years, they've gone through tons of heat cycles, and if you've ever taken heads off of an engine and tried to remove the head gasket, it's kind of stuck to it. So I'm hoping that I can do this way and preserve the stock head gaskets, as I think they are going to hold up better than a new set as long as this actually works. So it's risky, but I'm willing to risk it in hopes that I can end up with a better setup than I would if I were to just remove the heads completely, get things decked and cleaned, and then put new head gaskets in. It'll save me a little bit of money too, because odds are this engine's going to blow up by the end of the year anyway. So, and these head bolts, after the 3.9 liter is eventually deceased, these head bolts will work in my 318 that's sitting over there, so I can reuse these later on. So that is the plan. I need to go and figure out what the factory torque spec is. I need to figure out what the removal order is, because when you're doing it this way, you install them using the removal order or the removal pattern for the head bolts. So we'll kind of work our way from the outside in, and then when we're torquing them to the ARP spec, we'll work from the inside out like you would normally. So gonna figure out what the factory torque spec is, figure out what the order of removal is, that the heads don't warp, and then we'll get this valve cover off and we'll just get right into it. And then by the time this is done, I'll push the truck back in and I'll show you guys what I worked on this thing tonight. And then this video will continue on to probably tomorrow night and the night after potentially. We'll get this engine and transmission mated together and back in the Dakota. So I'm going to get you guys set up on the tripod, do a little bit of research real quick, and then we're going to get to getting these head bolts in here. Alright, so I went and figured out what the torque specs are. The factory head bolts actually go to 105 foot-pounds. The ARP calls for 100. So I'm going to torque the ARP bolts to the factory torque spec just because that's what everything's already at. If I was putting new head gaskets in, I would torque them to what ARP says, but it's only 5 pounds, and I would rather be a little bit over, which is the factory spec, than be under, just because I'm using these old head gaskets that have been at 105 foot-pounds their whole life. So that is what the torque spec is. You're supposed to go in a sequence of 50 and then 105, so 2 passes. I'll just be torquing them to 105 right away because I'm doing them one at a time. And a couple of other observations I made. First thing, I think I mentioned having an exhaust leak a couple of times, and it was definitely right there. You can see it pretty well on the gasket here. It was leaking out the corners. So I do have new gaskets that are going on here, but I wanted to show you guys that. Definitely sounded like it was coming right by the driver's side, and that's definitely where that was. So figured that out. That's good to know that that's all it was. Also, and this worries me a little bit, but we're going to send it anyway, there is a lot of oil. You see how that's all wet, dry, dry, and a little bit wet on this one as well. Tiny bit there, but pretty much the only one that's like really wet is this one over here. So this could be a combination of things. I may have a piston that's just got a cracked ringland or something. I could have, I don't know, like a valve stem seal that's leaking, or it could have been from when I was running this thing out of fuel, because I ran this thing out of E85 and put a couple gallons of 93 in it, ran it through with some seafoam in it to get all the old E85 flushed out of it. And that could be what that is, but it smells like oil, it looks like oil, so I don't really know what it is. I guess we'll find out. Maybe I'll do a compression test on this thing when it's back in the truck. We'll find out if it's hurt or not. I'm going to send it no matter what, because I kind of want to blow this thing up. So even if there is something wrong with it, we're just going to destroy it. So that is that. So now I just got to get this valve cover off. We'll get in here and we will install these ARP head bolts, and we'll get the exhaust and stuff put back on, because those have to come off to get to these guys here. And then we'll come back later on in the week and we'll get the transmission on and the clutch and stuff back together. So I'm going to get you guys set up on a tripod real quick, and we're going to get these head bolts done. And we'll go ahead and get these valve cover bolts. Oh my god, how tight did I put these things on here? Jesus. Also, going back to the oil thing, I did notice it actually did run low on oil on me once. So it's not like enough to smoke, but it is consuming oil, which could be any combination of things: worn out rings, cracked ring land. But the engine still makes plenty of power, so we're just gonna keep going with it, and when it blows up, it blows up. I'm not really that concerned about it. I'd like this truck to last most of the year, but when we've hit the end, we've hit the end. I'm not gonna be too upset about it. This thing's lasted longer than it probably should have anyway, so at least this thing blowing up will give me the opportunity to try something new and something different. Let's get this thing off here, and there's the, ooh, I forgot I had those in there. The Harlan Sharp roller rockers, and there's the reusable gasket engine stand moving. There we go. There's number one. Okay, go ahead and drop that guy in there. Alright. Okay, check it 3 times, playing with yourself. There's 1 done. I guess we'll just go to a time lapse and we will get the other 7 done, knock the other side out, and then we'll be done with this. Alright, I went ahead and got the other side finished up, got everything bolted back together. Both valve covers are on, of course all the head bolts are in and everything. Got all my plug wires put back on. Tomorrow I'm going to come out here and get the new exhaust manifold gaskets, because I got some new gaskets. They're actually for a V8, but I'll just cut 1 runner off each one. We'll be able to use them. And then I'll get these bolted back up once I get the mating surfaces cleaned up. And then we'll get this bolted back on. I need to cut the little back bar off of it after it's bolted on, because I'm not going to be using that. I might cut it off when I bolt it on. We'll just see. But I got to get that back on, and then that's pretty much it there. And I got to get the motor mounts in. So I got new motor mounts. I'll show you guys those tomorrow. I might have shown you them in the last video. I honestly can't remember anymore. It's been so long. But we'll get the new motor mounts on, all the exhaust stuff back on, and then it'll be time to get that thing off the stand, get the clutch on it, get a new throttle bearing in the transmission, get that motor mated to the engine, get everything torqued there, and then we'll be good to go. Be throwing it back in. So I don't know if that's going to happen tomorrow, or if I'll just get everything put together, slide it in the day after. We'll just see how things go. But that is going to be it for tonight. Now I want to show you guys something that I was working on over the weekend, and give you guys a little update on it, and that is the firewall. So you'll notice the firewall is painted. I didn't paint down here because you don't see that really when the truck's put together, and I didn't feel like cleaning all that. But I came in here and got all of the holes from the heater stuff and the blower motor stuff blocked off. So there was a hole here for the air conditioning to come in. There was a hole here, which was where the resistor was for the blower motor, and then there was a hole right here for the heater core. All those are welded, the plates are welded in from the inside, and the inside has bead seal on it, and then the outside it is painted, so it is completely sealed up and good to go. Didn't want to put bead seal on the ends, on like the firewall side, because it's kind of ugly. Had to do that here because I had to weld this from the outside, because this is the rain tray on the inside. It's 2 layers, so I couldn't get in there to weld it. So that has a bead seal on it, which I don't really care that much about. It's fine, but that's the only one I did that to, because it's the only one that was welded from the outside. And then the 3 bolt holes that here that were to mount the like whole heater core area, blower motor assembly and everything. Those are welded shut. So for those, I got some washers that were about the right size, welded the washers into place all the way around, and then I filled the little hole in the washer. That way I didn't have to cut out a piece of metal or anything. It was a lot easier, and they don't look too bad. This was the first one I did, and then this was the second one, this was the third one. You can tell I kind of got the welder a little bit more dialed in for this. By the time I got to the third one, it actually doesn't look that bad, honestly. And then I came in here and welded a bunch of holes shut. So there was holes that I had drilled in this firewall all over, and you can tell they're not perfect because I didn't do any body fill or anything. I just wanted to fill them real quick, welded them shut, ground them down a little bit. Like, I'm not that picky about how it looks. This cab probably isn't going to be on this truck forever anyway, so I'm not really super picky about this. But we got all the holes in the firewall filled in. Then there was this one right here, this one was for a grommet for the resistor. There was this one here, which I don't remember what this one went to. And then there was also a grommet hole over here, which was for the body harness that ran to all the like lights and fuel pump and stuff towards the back of the truck. So all those are covered up. The only holes that are left are these two here, which are going to be for vacuum lines running to like the boost gauge and the mega squirt, and then for like wires running to the gauges I'll be running. And then these two holes, there's a hole here and a hole on top. That was for originally the windshield washer sprayers. I decided not to fill them just because there was really no point. You aren't going to even see them. They'll be covered up by the little upper panel that goes here. So there's those, and then down here I left this hole, which was originally for the AC drain, open, and that is going to be where the mega squirt harness will be coming through the firewall. So I left that open, and then this hole right here I'm going to drill out a little bit more, and that is going to be where the power wire from the battery, which will be hung right here, runs into the car. So there will be battery here, 250 amp breaker, and then some zero gauge wire running into the cabin. The mega squirt will be mounted on the firewall. I'm going to get like a sheet of plywood or something to bolt to the firewall, and then I'll bolt like the mega squirt, my CDI box. I'm going to be reinstalling that. That's going to go there. The mega squirt fuse box, or the engine fuse box, and a couple of other odds and ends for the wiring are all going to go right there, and everything will be nice and clean. And then if I ever redo the wiring setup or make a bunch of changes, I can just replace the sheet of plywood instead of drilling more holes into the firewall, because that was a problem I had. Was that I turned this thing into Swiss cheese just changing the setup so much. There was holes all over this thing, which are now all filled in. That's done, and with that done, the engine can go back in, which is why we are working on all of this stuff. And this is the stuff I really like working on, is, you know, engine stuff and turbo stuff. You guys will be seeing that in a later video, but I have a new turbo just chilling right over there, so we'll talk more about that in a later date. But this is good to go. Hopefully tomorrow I can get everything buttoned up, get everything smashed together, throw it in here. So I will get back with you guys tomorrow night, and hopefully we'll be throwing an engine back in this turd. Alright, it is now the following day, and I went ahead and I got the engine off of the engine stand. I went ahead and wire wheeled the flywheel, and then I brake cleaned the clutch, which you can see the spot there. Did that because it got a bunch of dust and stuff on it from sitting out here. And then it also, if you guys remember, last year I had an issue with it slipping because I had spilled antifreeze or some sort of fluid onto it. I think it might have been transmission fluid. I can't remember at this point. Some sort of fluid got spilled on it, and it was slipping, and I ended up fixing it by just getting the thing really hot and burning it all off, and it eventually came back around. So I decided while it was out, I'd brake clean it like crazy, got it real clean, got the surfaces on both the pressure plate and the flywheel. I just wire wheeled them off real quick, didn't go crazy on them or anything. Put it all back together. Hopefully we are good to go there. It wasn't slipping anymore last year after I got all the crap burned off of it, so hopefully this thing is good to go. That's back on. I got the exhaust manifolds back on. I'm going to leave the Y pipe off for now just to make things a little bit easier. I got the new gaskets in there. I wire wheeled the gasket surfaces real quick, so those are bolted back on and good. Made sure those were tight. I put blue Loctite on the on the clutch bolts. The flywheel I didn't take off. I just left it on when this thing was on the stand. So that's good. I got my new motor mounts on. So these, oh, you can't even see them now. These are made by a brand called Hypotech. These are kind of pricey. They're like 240 bucks. but these are a polyurethane solid motor mount. These are incredible. The build quality is really good. I've been looking at getting a set of these for a while and just never really did it, and it was definitely time to do it now. I also got a new transmission mount because the old one collapsed a little bit, probably tore it up from how much the engine mounts were moving, so we got one of these guys here. I don't know what brand this is. There you go, that's the brand we got. So hopefully this thing does its job. Put that back in the box for now. So I got a new transmission mount, keeping a stock rubber transmission mount and the stiffer or solid motor mounts for the engine, and that is because these transmissions have a common issue where the corners of these transmissions break off the tail housing, and as you can see, this one's cracked, but it hasn't broken off completely, so hopefully I'm just going to let it ride and hopefully it stays in. This one, this corner piece actually broke completely off, so I've got some JB weld on it right now. I'm trying to glue it back into place. It's should be fine now since I'll have the solid mounts on the front, but I want to get it put back on there so I can bolt this thing together properly. My other transmission also has the corner busted off of it, but that corner piece was missing when I got it. This one, the corner piece was still stuck in the trans mount, so I was able to clean everything up, stick some JB weld on it. Hopefully it holds up. If it falls off again, I'll just deal with it. I'll probably end up having to get one of the tail housings I've got modified and have some new ears welded onto it completely from scratch pretty much, or I'll have to figure out a mount that runs off of this piece here, because for some reason all these transmissions have this. I don't know if this would be for like a transfer case if it was on a four-wheel drive, or if this is maybe what the Chevys use that have these transmissions in them. Don't really know. So I would be putting this engine and transmission in tonight, but I want to let that JB weld cure for the full 24 hours before I start putting on the engine and before it goes in the truck. So this is where I'm going to end for tonight. We got the mounts on, we got the exhaust manifolds on, we got the transmission glued back together, we got the clutch and stuff all put back together. So we're pretty much ready to go. Tomorrow I'll come in here, stick this transmission on, and go throw this thing into the truck, and we'll have an engine and transmission in the truck finally for first time in a little while. And then I got the drive shaft all cleaned up and everything as well. I think I showed you guys this a little while ago. So I got the drive shaft, cleaned it up, painted it, got all that good to go. I've got some new end caps to put on this U-joint so I can grease it now because I lost the cap that had the grease zerk on it. And that's good to go. And then the transmission cross member sitting right there, that's all painted and de-rusted, so that is good. So once tomorrow comes and I get out of work, I'll come in here, stab this transmission in, throw it in the truck, and we'll have a huge step in this process of getting this truck dialed in for this year finished. So I'm going to end it here tonight. I'll get back with you guys tomorrow, and we'll get some more work done on this thing and hopefully have it in the truck by the end of tomorrow night. Alright, it is now the next day, and as you can see, got the engine and the transmission bolted together and suspended by the hoist. So we're ready to go ahead and try to pop this thing in here. We've got the mounts on, I've got the oil filter off, I've got the shifter off. Of course, transmission's all bolted up and snugged down real good, and we are ready to go. We're all good to go. I'm going to start sliding this thing in, and we'll have an engine back in the truck by the end of the night. I'm by myself, so this can get interesting, but this is not my first time putting this thing in on my own, so we'll see how this goes. Definitely off to one side. Firewall, I think. A little bit, not a lot. Oh yeah, we're good to go now. Actually, gotta pick it up. And I'll push it back a little bit. Now we're getting somewhere. You have to kind of shoot the gap between mounts. Oh, that's a good thing that's not the part of the firewall that I painted. Okay. say the least. Oh, looks like we're past it. Now, that's better. Once the sump is back there, we'll be good to go. Not want to go in. Might have to stick a bar down here and get a bunch of leverage on this engine here. There we go. Just a tiny bit loose. Loose enough, at least. There we go. It started to roll in. And that one didn't roll completely back out. Put down a little bit more and I'll pull the other side. You just gotta rip it down. It actually worked. Well, there it is. The engine and transmission are back in. I got the motor mounts tightened up. I still need to stick the bolt back in this, and if you look, you see that rust mark? This thing did end up sucking it in once I got the mounts into place, but once I did that and spent some time prying and then got the transmission crossmember and mount and everything in, those mounts sat a lot better. So they're made correctly, they're just so stiff and tight that they kind of had to shift some things around. Once they've been broken, I've done some driving on them, I think they'll be perfectly fine. Pulling in and out in the future is just being brand new and, you know, things needing to kind of shift themselves around a little bit. So that's all good. I got the transmission crossmember bolted all the way in. The mount is bolted all the way into the transmission and to the crossmember, so all of that is done. I got the slave cylinder bolted back in. I actually had to go down there and re-drill the threads on that. So this transmission, the threads where the old studs were so corroded, when I went to put new ones in, got them a little bit tight and then they started blowing the threads out. So I had to go down there and turn a little tap a quarter at a time with this wrench here. Where's the tap? It's right there. Yeah, spent probably a good hour doing that, but got everything drilled out, got some new bolts in there. Those are good. The clutch pedal works perfectly. So everything is good to go there. I still need to go back into this and put the drive shaft in, and I need to put transmission fluid in it. Just button a couple other little things up, like putting that bolt back in, a little brace right there, and that'll be pretty much it. We have an engine and transmission back in the truck, and now that this is done, I can put my new fenders that you guys may have seen sitting behind me back. I can put those on. I need to cut up the little front core support pieces a little bit more, put them back on. I got some new body mounts to go on here and some other things. So I'll continue this video tomorrow. I'll just dial in a couple little things, like I'm going to get the shifter bolted into there and the drive shaft, a few other things, and then this video will be done. Got an engine back in this thing. This is a huge relief just to have this back in here, because for one thing it means I've got some shop space back, and it also means that we're making some good progress, and means now that that is in there, we can start working with the turbocharger, which is hiding back there, and getting all that stuff done, getting this modified and bolted back on and all that stuff. So I'll get back with you guys tomorrow, just take care of a couple other little things, and then we will be done. Alright, it's another next day, and I went and got a few things taken care of, and this thing's pretty much ready. This thing's pretty much done as far as what I'm going to be doing for this video. So I'll show you guys what I did real quick here, and then we will be done. So I got the starter bolted completely back in. There's only 2 bolts. Got that done and taken care of. Replaced the spark plugs. I actually bought plugs early on last year because I had a misfire. Turned out it was one of the injector plug adapters that I had on it that was causing it, but I had bought new plugs to change them and never put them in, so I decided to just save them till, you know, this year instead of putting them in last year, because the old plugs were working fine. In fact, I've got them sitting on the table here and they're looking alright. So I've got them kind of in order. So this would have been, you know, passenger front, driver front, going back, and these 4 right here, they're all really clean. There's no soot or anything crazy. They're not super white. They're not all burned out or anything. These back 2 are wet. but I think that was from when I was draining all the old fuel out of it, and I basically just kept it running until it could not run anymore. And I think those were the last two that were firing because the engine tilts backwards, so as the thing was running out of fuel, all the fuel was running to the back two injectors. Makes sense to me at least, so I think that's kind of what was going on here. But yeah, they look clean. I've definitely got the correct heat range. I did go ahead and open up the gap on these plugs compared to what I was running on these. I was running an 030 gap, which is tighter than the factory. The factory is 035. I was running an 030 on these. I'm going to go ahead and try to run a 40 gap on these new ones, because if I end up with a little misfire, I can just close the gap up. It's not a huge deal, but I want to try it and see what happens. I'll be running the Blaster 2 coil, and I'll be running a CDI box again, so I should have plenty of ignition power to fire these at that gap, even under boost, but we will find out. I want to try it and, just see, because it's a little bit extra power, make it a little bit better on fuel, and just overall better. So I almost forgot, I'm going to have to insert this clip somewhere in the video, but these are the plugs that I'm running. These are very common on supercharged 5.9 and 5.2 liter V8s, which is essentially the same thing as this engine. So that is the plug that I'm running. If you guys want to know what plug I'm running, I believe this is 2 steps colder. It's a V power plug, so it's got the little V-shaped thing in the electrode. Let's see if I can... Yeah, it's not going to focus on that. There it is. There you can see the little V. So those are the plugs that I'm running. These things worked flawlessly. These plugs are actually still good. I'm just, doing regular maintenance essentially. I don't want to, retune this thing and try making more power on 2-year-olds, because these plugs are 2 years old, but mind you, so they've done very, very well. Anyway, we'll get back to the video. Got the new plugs in. We got the starter in. I filled the engine with oil. I got a new oil filter on it, so that is all taken care of. I wanted to get that done now just in case I forget later on. I also got the transmission filled with fluid, so the drive shaft is completely in. I lubricated the snout on the drive shaft, cleaned it out real good, and then lubricated it, put it in. Got Loctite on the 4 little U-joint strap bolts, put those in, so the drive shaft is 100% in. The transmission is full of some Pennzoil synchro mesh. I got the shifter completely bolted in there. I also had to clearance out, now that the cab and everything is sitting straight, I had to clearance out this plate. It came in here with some tin snips and trimmed this. So this thing's all hooked up and ready to go. This is just on here kind of loose so that I can shift it in and out of gear in case I'm moving the thing and I need to lock it into place. Because now I can actually do that. I can put it in gear and the truck won't roll away all the time on me. So that's good. That's nice. So that's all the way in. And I think that pretty much covers all of that stuff. So we got transmission fluid, oil, new filter, new plugs, starter's on, drive shaft is in. Basically the entire drivetrain is all ready to go. So I think that's where I'm going to end it for this video. I think between now and the next video I'm going to go ahead and get the front clip put up back on this thing. I've got some new fenders here. I don't think this is actually who I ordered them from. I can't remember. These are the cheapest new fenders I could find on eBay, so I just went in and ordered them. I'm not really... Hopefully they actually work and they look decent. They were shipped pretty well. The box didn't get destroyed on the way here, so hopefully these are good. I'm going to be putting those on, and then I've got the what's left of the old core support pieces or header panel pieces here. I need to trim some metal off of these, get those, and the new fenders on. I'm going to use the grill as kind of a guide to get everything like lined up with these two, since that's all cut in half now. Got new body mounts to go in with them, so I'm going to be getting all of that stuff bolted on, so we'll have like the fenders and the core support and the body mounts and some of that stuff attached to the front of the truck, so it'll kind of look like a truck again between now and the next video. Next video should be installing the new turbocharger and getting some of the exhaust setup and also the oil setup dialed in on this thing. So you guys probably saw that sitting right there. We'll talk more about that turbocharger at a later date. But we'll be getting that thing installed. The Y pipe is sitting in the bed of the truck right now. We'll be getting that put back on, modifying it for that turbocharger, moving stuff around, moving the location of the wastegate and all that stuff. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.